Hey everyone, and welcome to Age of Reason. Today is Saturday, April 29th, 2017. With me today is Luke, returning again.
Hello?
Kind of long time no see.
Long time no see.久しぶりね.
So today is a little bit bizarre for me because I actually didn't get any sleep, so I'm already pissed. And I have just a few comments to make first before we jump into the show. The first thing is kind of obvious, but I just want to point it out anyway. I think if you come to my page and you're a hardcore theist, you're going to have a really bad time. It's kind of obvious, but I just want to repeat it one more time. And the second comment I get sometimes, it's very rare though. Well, you know, the show is too long. Okay, well, here's the thing. You can't explain a kind of complex issue in a tweet. It's impossible. And unfortunately, we live in a world today where everything is sound bites. Especially if you watch the news or something like that, it's just sound bites. With politicians, it's even worse. It's just buzzwords. It's just jobs, or that's all they say.
MAGA.
And outside of that, you get a ton of distractions. And there's, I think, no bigger distractions than celebrity gossip, in my opinion. So people jump from Ryan Seacrest doing some nonsense to Mariah Carey or Taylor Swift, who's breaking up with her 1000th boyfriend. We're swamped by that. And if you can reason properly, if you are able to think logically and reasonably about issues, then great for you. I'm very happy for you. But unfortunately, most people are not at that level. And most people cannot think properly. So my hope through this show is to give people tools to really think through the issue properly. I think a lot of the times what atheists do is they're given some kind of question. Like, for example, we're going to cover a video today.
Yep.
What do you think about this video?
Yeah.
Ha ha ha, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, but why is it ridiculous? Because maybe for you, like I said, it's obvious. You know, you can list the fallacies he makes in videos, etc. But again, most people cannot. So, you know, bear with me. And like I always say, this show is not for everybody. If you think it's too long and if you think this is stuff that you already know, then, you know, probably it's not really for you and you should probably move on to something else. So.
Plus, I don't think 1 hour is not that long for a podcast. I think that's quite normal, right?
Yeah.
It's typical. So.
Yeah. I think it's just like a lot of people have such a short attention span these days.
Absolutely.
And I actually always compare the average human being to a kind of a cat who's chasing a laser pointer. It's just from one issue, and then 5 minutes later, it's already on a different issue. And people just don't take the time to actually sit down and think about the real issues.
Yes.
So, all right. So today, hopefully, we're going to have a short show. I know I say it every time, and then we end up talking over an hour, but that's what happens. But we're going to start Numbers. So we finished Leviticus last time, and then we're going to cover a video which is 5 minutes long, but kind of interesting video.
Interesting video, yes.
All right, well, why don't we jump straight into Numbers and you get the first one.
On the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated for my own all the firstborn in Israel, both man and of beast. They shall be mine. I am the Lord.
I really find it odd that, the biblical God, this creature who supposedly created the entire universe.
Yep.
So this huge expanse of galaxies and planets and stuff like that. Why he would care so much about this tiny piece of rock with a very average star.
Yeah.
And why would he control people? I mean, when he says people shall be mine, that means like people are your property, which is really akin to slavery.
Yeah. Why create the universe at all? It's so unnecessarily large to contain such a tiny planet with such a tiny species. And as you say, why even have a religion or freedom of thought or free will?
Yeah.
If you're going to command ownership over these people.
And Okay, so this part actually just talks about confession and restitution, which for me is pretty weird. It says, so basically if a man commits a sin, he shall confess his sin that he has committed. So of course this goes back to the confessional thing.
Yep.
You know, you go to the priest and you tell that you committed a sin. Okay, so then he shall make full restitution for his wrong, adding a fifth to it and giving it to him to whom he did the wrong. I don't understand this passage, because which sin is it talking about? It's completely vague. So I actually have here just a printout just to remember the 7 deadly sins, let's say. Let's take any of them. Let's take, well, let's take lust, actually, because that's an easy one. So let's say you committed lust, or you looked at some woman with lust, which is not a sin, by the way. It's just made up in the Bible. But let's say you do that and you think it's a sin. How do you restitute that and you add a fifth to it? You have to look at somebody with even more, like a fifth more lust?
Or a fifth less lust. How can
Right.
you unlustfully look at somebody?
Yeah.
And then add a fifth to that.
Or we talked about that when you were here the last time. Let's say you hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And you have to make restitution and add a fifth to it. So, okay, if you broke somebody's arm, then he gets to break your arm and your knee or something? I mean, how
or
does
maybe
that
like
work?
a pinky or something like that.
Right, right.
Yeah, or would you flagellate yourself? It seems like you would need to hurt yourself, or maybe some kind of. It seems that this is some kind of financial rest.
Yeah.
Or organization that somehow that the priest will come up with a tax that you have to pay.
Right, right.
But the language here is completely vague. We don't know
Yes.
what exactly a sin is to begin with. So this is a passage that can be applied to pretty much any situation.
Right, right. And it finishes with, and every contribution, all the holy donations of the people of Israel, which they bring to the priest, shall be his. Well, that's
Yes.
a great way to make money.
Yeah, there it is. You have a vague rule, and if you break these rules, you have to give me money.
Right.
It's excellent.
Yeah.
Test for adultery. If any man's wife goes astray and breaks faith with him, if a man lies with her sexually and is hidden from the eyes of her husband, and she is undetected, she has defiled herself, and there is no witness against her. If the spirit of jealousy comes over him, and he is jealous of his wife who has defiled herself, or if the spirit of jealousy comes over him, and he is jealous of his wife, though she has not defiled herself, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest.
I'm always absolutely stunned when I meet a Christian woman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is patriarchal philosophy designed to give all the power to the men in society, and the idea that someone would willingly enter a philosophy or a way of life that subjugates them, takes away their rights, is mind-blowing.
Yeah. We always talk about Islam, where when women in Islam are very subjugated.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you really read the Bible, because you see, these type of passages, you will never hear that on Sunday. They will never be read.
No.
They will always cherry pick some kind of nice things here and there.
I think even because they're all of the books are related. I think that even some of radical Islam takes some of their cues from the old Torah.
It's very possible.
Things like stoning women to death is from the Christian Bible, not from the Quran.
Right, right. Stoning adulterers.
Yes.
Right, right. And I find it so funny here that it says, if the man basically suspects that the woman is cheating, that's good enough to already judge her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. But if you have gone astray, though you are under your husband's authority, you take the oath of the curse. When the Lord makes your thigh fall away and your body swell, may this water that brings the curse pass into your bowels and make your womb swell and your thigh fall away. And the woman shall say, Amen, amen. Then the priest shall write these curses in a book and wash them off into the water of bitterness. And he shall make the woman drink the water of bitterness that brings the curse, and the water that brings the curse shall enter into her and cause bitter pain. Well, that's nice.
Yikes.
And again, this is all from the perspective of the man. So if a woman cheats, basically, it's horrible and it should be punished. But if a man cheats, there is absolutely no rule against that.
I assume it's not mentioned at all in the Bible about men being adulterous.
In fact, it's kind of encouraged that they have many partners or have servants, of course, female servants.
Yeah. Abraham laid with his servant.
Oh, yeah.
Because his wife was really old, if I remember correctly. But this...
And not just him. I mean, pretty much all of them did.
And the Mormons take multiple wives as well, right?
Yep, pretty sure they do, yeah.
So it's a massive double standard. This curse is really strange, though. It seems like it's describing menopause almost. To have your stomach swell as well as your thighs.
Yeah.
That it seems like if you commit these sins, then you'll get fat. We are unclean through touching a dead body. Why are we kept from bringing the Lord's offering at its appointed time among the people of Israel? And Moses said to them, wait, I may hear what the Lord will command concerning you.
First of all, it's a bit strange that you were kind of touch dead bodies. That sounds kind of necromancy almost.
Yeah. I mean, people would dispose of dead bodies. People would bury dead bodies. Are they? What kind of dead body handling are we talking about? Like, is this like you say, necrophilia, or a type of, common service? Are these people excluded from the? And I think it's interesting that Jesus would cure the lepers, but in this context here, we're kicking people out who have leprosy.
Yep. And the end of that passage, right? So Moses tells them, oh, wait, the signal's from space coming. Here's somebody's talking to me. This is so funny that this entire book is written about a guy who basically is hearing voices in his head, and people go, oh, sure, he's talking to God. They don't even doubt. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. There are later people that do doubt a little bit, and they get punished. But I just find it funny that, we talk about the origin of Christianity. It was about a guy who heard voices telling him to kill his own son.
Yeah.
And people go like, oh, sure, that's okay, because it's from God.
And he listened to those voices.
Right.
Like he believed those voices.
Today, if people claim to hear voices in their head, they go to mental asylums.
Yeah. I'm sure that paranoid schizophrenics have been around for thousands of years, and these days we can diagnose the condition, but back in those days, 3,000 years ago, I mean, these people might have been considered prophets of God.
Right.
I'm sure that they thought they were prophets of God.
Right. This is actually continuing on what we just said. Some people start to doubt Moses. They basically start to question, I think the food starts to run out or something like that. And they start to question Moses, and they ask the question, why did we come out of Egypt? Just for questioning, God sends a quail and a plague. And the Lord struck down the people with a very great plague, and they buried the people who had the craving. These people who wanted to eat or something like that, they wanted more food or something. Maybe it was not available. Okay, you're already doubting, a little bit of doubt, that's not acceptable, so I have to send a plague to eliminate those people.
Yeah, this is an example of this is an example of mind control. Any kind of doubt. Christians fear doubt. I think atheists are really comfortable with doubting and not knowing things, but for Christians, that's the devil whispering in their ears. Because of passages like this, if they stray just a little bit, then they'll be punished severely, I mean, according to the story. Right.
Well, I think reason is the biggest enemy of faith.
Yeah, and doubting things is incredibly healthy. Having a level of skepticism is healthy. Like the idea that you would take a group of people out into the desert with no food, and someone would question your you know, what the hell you're doing. I mean, that's a completely reasonable thing
Yeah.
to do, and they're smited by God for that.
Right.
I mean, that's telling in itself.
Recently, I had a guy who was saying, "Oh, well, I like what Jesus says." Okay,
Mm.
well, first of all, that statement in itself, he already cherry-picked the Bible to hell to even come up to that conclusion. But actually, if you listen to what Jesus was saying, he actually said that all the rules from the Old Testament stand. So if you actually like what Jesus is saying, it doesn't make any sense. You're not thinking properly.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, the Bible makes no sense. The Bible
Yeah.
is quite contradictory, so to stand by that law is an impossible position to hold. But yeah, anyone who loves Jesus has to love the Bible, the God of the Old Testament.
Right. That's how it refers. Yeah.
And if anybody's read the Bible from cover to cover, it's a pretty gross document.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, with every book we go through, like we went through Leviticus, and I thought that was horrible. And then you just hope that the next book will be a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's just a continuation.
It's like a horrible onion. You're just peeling these layers off, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. And he said, "Has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?"
This is a great question.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's a reasonable question as well.
The easiest evidence for God is if everybody in the world suddenly heard some kind of, well, it has to be the same message, obviously. But if only one guy is hearing the message and nobody else is, it's absolutely reasonable to ask, why am I not hearing?
Especially this kind of God, like deists believe in nature being a god of the world, and we're all a part of the world, and we're all a part of nature. So this kind of God is for everybody, not just for one person to control a group.
Right.
And so you see two different types of gods being presented here, and the Bible clearly favors the authoritarian rule type of God.
Yeah. First of all, there's no evidence that Moses ever existed. Okay.
No.
But also, if you watch kind of religious cartoons and things like that, he's always just portrayed as this old man who's guiding the people out of Egypt, and no violence really involved. But if you go through every passage of him ruling, because that's what he is, he's a ruler. He's not even a ruler, he's a warlord. He sends people to war.
Right.
So cartoons don't show that. So they question why God is not talking to us and only to Moses. Okay, again, this is doubt. This is not acceptable to God. So when the cloud removed from over the tent, behold, Miriam was leprous, like snow.
God gave her leprosy.
Yeah.
Just for asking a very simple question, it says here like that God comes down as a pillar of cloud,
Right.
and speaks to Miriam, saying, "Well, why aren't you afraid of Moses? Moses is the person who speaks for me.
Right.
You should be afraid of God. Why don't you fear Moses?" And they apologize, of course. It says here, I speak to Moses directly, mouth to mouth, clearly, and not in riddles.
Yeah.
But this passage contradicts itself, because he's clearly appeared before Miriam and Aaron and speaking to them directly. He says he only speaks to Moses, to them. Like, he's contradicting himself with the words that he's saying directly, and then he gives them leprosy.
Right.
Not only is it a reasonable question, it's just a question, but the rules that he has set down, he breaks, and then he gives them leprosy for questioning the rules.
Well, I think this is just kind of the God of the Old Testament. I think he creates man, gives man, well, okay, man commits a sin, but is later forgiven and given free will. Oh, but then man doesn't act as God wants, so he drowns the whole planet. That's the Ark of Noah story, right? So, but this is a stupid God, I'm sorry. I mean, this is a God who has absolutely no plan. he's kind of walking on pitchforks.
I've said before that you know, this omnipotent, omniscient God can do anything he wants except communicate clearly. You know? And this is an example, perhaps even intentional. Like, this kind of reminds me of like something like 1984, where you have an authoritarian rule, and you have all of these rules, but you don't really know what the rules are, and the rules are constantly changing, and you don't know when you're breaking the rules and when you're not, and eventually you're just waiting for punishment.
Right. We're gonna go into the video, and before we go into the video, I actually need to set it up. I've seen many reviews of the video, but I've never actually seen people go into the biography of the guy, for example. So it's very important. This is Dr. Gerald Schroeder, and he has quite extensive, well, he claims anyway, to have a quite extensive experience in science, earth sciences and physics. He claims to have 30 years of experience in research and teaching. He doesn't mention any papers that he wrote, but it mentions some of articles that he wrote for Time Magazine, Newsweek, Scientific American. Well, I'm not sure that Time and Newsweek are scientific magazines, first of all. Scientific American, okay, yeah. But the funny thing is, I was not able to find any sort of information on him on the web, outside of, obviously, his biography, which I'm looking at right now, and some kind of Christian websites that just kind of loosely quote him here and there. There are two websites I use to check if it's a kind of real scientist or not, and that's Google Scholar and ResearchGate. And he doesn't come up in either.
Right.
You look for Lawrence Krauss, it's clearly there. Actually, I printed it out here. You can see exactly how many articles he published and how many citations he got. But this guy, I couldn't find anything.
No, I saw he writes books as well. All of his book titles are very, like, you have there The Hidden Face of God and God According to God. And,
right.
You know, he has a series of books that are like this. He's probably one of these people who is a professional Christian more than a professional scientist.
Yeah, and in the video, obviously, you'll see he's pretty old already. He left the US, I think, in 1971, so that's a long time ago. Just a quick note about his wife also. I looked her up, and she works for the Jerusalem Post. And if you go to that website, in the top right corner, there's a section Christian News. I'm not kidding. And I think any news website that has such a option in the menu, it's to be taken with a grain of salt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, if you read some of the reviews of his books, like God According to God, people say that it's God according to Gerald Schroeder.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What else can it be, really? So anyway, let's jump into the video. It's apparently his vain attempt at proving that God exists in 5 minutes. So why don't we look into that?
My name is Gerald Schroeder. I have a, thank God, a strong science background from MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, bachelor's, master's, PhD, 7 years in the physics staff, seen a whole range of atomic bombs detonated, moved to Israel, met my wife, Barbara Sofer, a great writer, and then teach Torah and science. So luckily, I'm lucky that I have the two that come together.
I'd like to see where that happens, because we've been through, you know, Genesis and Leviticus and all of that. I really don't see where science is compatible with.
Yeah, that's probably in the 10-minute video that he has.
Maybe, yeah.
So he moved to Jerusalem. I assume his wife is Jewish?
I guess so, yeah.
So is he...
He's Jewish too.
He's Jewish too,
Yeah.
so he's not preaching the Christian version of God. He's preaching the God from the Talmud.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, maybe that's an easier sell, but I from what you've been, what we've been reading today, I mean, I don't see what physics has to do with anything that we've read about today.
Right.
To be fair.
And one of the questions that I'm asked as a scientist is, how can a scientist really believe that there's something what we refer to usually as God? is this metaphysical whatever acting in the world or producing the world. And the irony is, the question's really a non-starter.
Well, why is it a non-starter? It's a fair question.
Yeah.
How can you be like a real scientist, and at the same time believe in this God who is really supernatural, and the definition of supernatural is outside of the natural, right? So, you basically already contradict yourself in your mind, in your profession.
Yeah, it's science generally is like facts-based and evidence-based, and
and based on reality.
And based on reality, so, which is, nothing like the Bible.
Science has in fact discovered God.
Oh my God! Did I miss that paper?
Breaking news,
It's funny because I remember there was a article shared on Facebook a while ago, and literally the title was "Science has proven God exists." But the thing is, I actually never read the article, but people who did tell me that it was actually sarcastic.
Oh, so.
Like you have to read it, and then it's not what the title says.
Yeah, and like you say before, you couldn't find a single research paper by this guy. If science had discovered God, I'm sure this guy would be a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, well, he claims in his biography that he patented some kind of device, and I tried to Google that device. Nothing came up.
No.
So I'm really wondering, is this guy just kind of making it up or what? Scientists are usually very proud of their work. If they really invented something or patented something, they would very proudly display that on their website or put a link to it or something like that. It's his biography. Why does he put a link to it?
He seems to be hiding out in Jerusalem. He has a cushy teaching job, and he doesn't get any real strong criticisms.
Well, that's the other interesting thing, right? So he left the US to go to Israel in 1971. In the video, he's already pretty old. I think what happened is that maybe he was not so good at what he's doing, so he thought, I'm probably not going to make it in the US. Science is probably not really for me. So he found an easy escape to go to Israel and obviously become involved with religion a lot. So it's kind of an easy ticket out.
I think that the Israeli government also offers people citizenship. They're always trying to get people to come back to Jerusalem and marry Jewish women. I think there's a policy of that in Israel to get Jewish people to come back to Israel to strengthen the population. Right. He's probably taken some deal like that, and has chosen a very cushy and easy way of existence, just churning out mindless novels for these sheeple,
Right.
And you can talk to the hardline atheists, and they will say, it looks like science has indeed discovered God.
Well, I talk to many atheists, and I don't know a single one who would make that claim.
Yeah, even after I've seen this video already, and I was left unimpressed.
And how would that be? Well, if you take the trouble of going to the web and there type in WMAP, the initials for a satellite, it's a diagram that shows the development of the universe from the creation over time. It's a timeline.
Well, first of all, the language here, when you say creation, that is a very loaded religious word. Creation involves a creator, and if you actually would teach that at university, especially US is unfortunately very religious as well. But
depends on which university.
But if you try to teach at a reputable institution, and if you start saying things like that, you might lose your job.
I would hope you would, yeah.
Right.
Every word on that diagram comes from the NASA site. It is the condensed knowledge of the scientific community of how the universe created and how it got to where we are today. Each of the lines, the vertical lines, is another billion years. Okay, you start from a burst of energy at the extreme left side of the diagram, and you end up at the far end with the oval. The oval is to indicate expansion in all directions. Of course, because it's a timeline, we can't show that on a single piece of paper. We see here, most amazingly, that on the extreme left edge, it shows a beginning to the universe. Now go back less than 50 years. If I were teaching that at Tech, a person could lose tenure. saying that there was a creation of the universe. It sounds like it's Bible.
Yes, it does, because that's what it is.
I wonder if that's even true. Like if teaching that there is a beginning to the universe was a controversial thing to say 50 years ago. Maybe it was. It does seem counterintuitive that there would be a beginning to the universe.
Well, the Big Bang Theory got official really like in the 60s and the 80s later, I think.
Yeah. After they found the background radiation from the Big Bang. It does kind of beg the question, like, if there is a beginning to the universe, what if there's a Big Bang, what banged, what happened before the beginning, and it does beg a lot of questions, more than it answers. But yeah,
because less than 50 years ago, the overwhelming scientific opinion was the universe is eternal. There was never a beginning. The Bible is wrong from the very first sentence. And then we discovered suddenly Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, the Bell Labs in New Jersey, the northeast of the US, discover the echo of the Big Bang.
I think what he's mentioning is actually the background radiation, which shows that the expansion is happening, and we're getting the residue from that initial expansion. Well, the Bible is very wrong from the very first sentence, because the Bible basically says God created the heavens and the earth. If you say the heavens is space and earth, it was created at the same time. It makes no sense. There is, I don't know, any regular scientist that would make such a claim today.
Yeah, I think.
So we got the universe expanding and Earth at the same time, already formed, and it doesn't make any sense.
What I wanted to say is just to sort of say that there's a beginning to the world, or that there is a creation, is not a Christian idea, or it's not a Jewish idea. It's an idea that exists in every single mythological story. Many mythological tales have creation gods, creation stories, creation deities, and a lot of which were stolen by the Bible. Like the Bible directly rips off a lot of ancient creation myths. So just to simply say that there is a beginning to the universe doesn't necessarily follow that the Bible is correct. What you're sort of saying is that there is an element of truth in all mythological stories from all time, even the Vedic scriptures, to Hinduism, to Shintoism, to any religion.
You see, what a lot of religious people do, though, is that because those holy books are so vague, they try to kind of put real things, and then well, it sounds kind of like what is said here.
Yeah.
But how do you know? That's just your interpretation. That's why Christianity has over 38,000 denominations, and everyone is a little bit different, and yet every single one thinks that they're right.
And it's somewhat meaningless, because you read the Bible and you're never going to infer anything. You're never going to make a discovery based on a study of the Bible. It's not like you could spend 500 years studying the Bible and then learn about the cosmos and the stretch of time and the planets. You still need science. You still need to go out and observe things. You need astrophysicists and chemists and things like that. We need science, but we don't need the Bible. The Bible is the extraneous thing.
Well, I think if you follow the Bible, the Earth is flat, and the stars are just kind of hanging in the air, which is so weird. And of course, the Earth is at the center of the universe. Of course.
The energy left over, which George Gamow 60 years ago predicted that if there had been a universe created hot and small, it would have exploded, and the energy would get more and more dilute. And Penzias and Wilson, these Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, discover this energy that had been predicted overnight. The Bible got it right.
No, it didn't. You moved the goalposts to fit your ideology.
I like how he constantly tries to slip in the word "created" every time he gets a chance. It's a technique to get people to come around to your way of thinking. That Stephen Hawking has already ascertained that there is no need for a creator being, to explain the Big Bang. Things like forces like gravity explain the phenomenon completely, and you wouldn't say that the clouds in the sky were created every day. They just form. They're a part of a system that just works by itself. And we would say the same about the universe. There is no need to say it was created or there was any sort of creator.
Well, I find it funny that he shows this diagram from NASA, and then just on the edge there, he adds beginning of the universe. So just for him, right? Yeah. This guy, who is apparently has this extensive amount of experience in science, he says that it's an explosion, right? The Big Bang is an explosion, but yet nobody I know uses that term. They use expansion, not explosion. Explosion is very chaotic, something that doesn't result in any order whatsoever. But yet we do have some kind of order these days.
It's interesting that he's basing a lot of all of his authority comes from science. He's using the authority of science to back up the word of God, which is a strange way of going about it if you really believe in God. The thing is that most scientists would admit that their knowledge is limited and it's growing. So we could say that the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe, or tomorrow we might discover something else and our knowledge will expand and we will discover that there was something before the Big Bang. Any day, like that could happen. This is the nature of science, that it changes and evolves as we understand more things. So he wants to sort of stop the learning, because it fits it vaguely fits some sort of notion or idea that he has of some ancient mythological story that he has.
Now the black in the diagram is nothing. It's not a vacuum. Vacuums are within that diagram, within that cone of expansion. Vacuums are empty space, and space is something. The black of the paper around the diagram is nothing. It doesn't fit in our human brain, because humans think in a box made of time, space, and matter/energy. No human, as clever as they might be, as expansive as they might be, thinks out of that box.
First of all, I really don't like when people think for me what I can or cannot imagine on my own. And he's just wrong in saying that. Also, it's kind of weird that he says, so, okay, like everything, even the vacuum, is inside this cone, and then he said outside of it is nothing, but nothing is outside. Everything is in the cone. You just contradicted yourself.
Universe isn't cone shaped. Like this is just a diagram.
Right.
Like this is one diagram to illustrate a particular point. So you could draw a different diagram that would show the universe in a different shape. This cone represents a dimension, and there's already been many theories about multi-dimensional universes. So where our known universe stops, there is a potential that a second universe or multiple universe will exist around us.
Right.
So there might not be this nothing that he's pointing out might not exist. It might just then lead into another universe.
Right. Or it could just be endless darkness. And you could just be going forever. I can imagine that. Why he says I cannot? It's so weird.
Or it could loop back on itself. You go so far that you end up coming back to where you started from.
Right.
I mean, there's different ways to represent infinity.
Yeah.
How are we going to have this idea, is there a God or not? Notice that the creation force isn't a three-letter word, G-O-D. If you look at the words carefully, it's a quantum fluctuations. That understanding was first brought down by Ed Tryon, brilliant human being, in the journal Nature almost 40 years ago. The universe allows creation of something from nothing, provided you have the laws of nature, the quantum fluctuation. Tryon realized, and he published in the journal Nature, one of the two leading peer-reviewed journals in the world, that you can create something from absolute nothing, provided you've got the laws of nature, quantum physics and the laws of relativity. In other words, the laws of nature. So look what science has discovered. We can create the universe from absolute nothing, provided we have the forces of nature. Now, the laws of nature, the forces of nature aren't physical, they act on the physical. So if they create the universe, that means they predate the universe.
No, because as far as we know, after the Big Bang, space-time was created. There is nothing that is before that point. So this is him making an empty assertion.
And we know objectively that time operates differently in different parts of the universe and the galaxy.
Sure.
There's no constant time. So
black hole, right? I mean, just stops.
Yeah, and things traveling faster than others. That affects time. Like, I think there are three forces that come out of the Big Bang. I think one of them is gravity, and time, and then something else. And this is very sort of a difficult part of the universe to describe. I think most scientists have described right up to the last millisecond before the Big Bang, and
I mean after.
Sorry. So yeah, this is incredibly complicated stuff to talk about. So,
well, first of all, they might have existed before the Big Bang. We don't know, but he's basically saying, oh yeah, they existed. Okay, but where's the evidence? Where's his paper? Where's his peer-reviewed paper on that?
Yeah, this is like complicated astrophysics stuff.
And we're not scientists, by the way.
No. Something from nothing. I mean, essentially, Christians think that God came from nothing, right? The universe comes from God. God comes from nothing. So we Christians and atheists believe something similar. We just take the God part out.
Yeah.
We both believe that the universe comes from nothing.
Well, also when Christians say everything has a creator. Okay, so the universe was created by God, but if you say everything has a creator, then what created God?
Yeah, exactly.
You have this kind of weird loophole that you avoid.
Essentially, God created himself? I mean, how is that any different to the universe coming from nothing? I mean, it seems like a different way of saying the same thing. Yeah, but this laws of nature coming from before the beginning of the universe, I mean, that's not proven, I think.
No.
So now we have a set of forces, we call them the laws of nature, that are not physical, that are able to act on the physical. They create the physical from absolute nothing. And they predate the universe, which means they predate our understanding of time.
This is just what we said. That's his claim. There is unfortunately no evidence to back up his claim.
Put that together and it sounds very familiar. If you haven't noticed it, that's the biblical definition of God.
Okay, so the biblical definition of God, if you really want to go there, it's something that sets bushes on fire. I don't think gravity can do that. It's something that talks to people. Like people can hear some kind of information transmitted somehow. We don't even know, like, is it radio wave or is it like through microwave somehow? It's a kind of entity that appears as a pillar of clouds sometimes, so it's clearly visible. And if it is a pillar of cloud, it is physical. So
the definition of the biblical God is, incredibly vague. This is like just deism. Like this really describes no mythological creature whatsoever. This just describes nature as being the Godhead, and it's just a vague kind of deism that you could apply to any religion. This is the God of the Quran, or the God of the Torah, or the God of Hinduism. I mean, or no God at all.
I actually asked for opinions on this video because obviously I'm not a scientist, so maybe I would miss something. And Jeremy, who's a co-host sometimes, he said that basically this is called special pleading. It's a fallacy. And what it is applying standards, principles, and or rules to other people or circumstances while making oneself or certain circumstances exempt from the same critical criteria without providing adequate justification. Special pleading is often a result of strong emotional beliefs that interfere with reason. And we very clearly see that in this video. But just an example they give here is, yes, I do think that all drunk drivers should go to prison. But Your Honor, he's my son. He's a good boy who just made a mistake. So you just make that exception because of your emotional connection to your son, obviously. And yet you think everybody else should be punished.
Yeah, certainly. He's the argument he outlines in this video is very, very narrow and very, very particular. His other work I've seen is through Wikipedia is about viewing time and how time can appear different depending on where you are, and so taking the biblical days of creation and stretching that out over billions of years. He's taking the Christian Bible and trying to sort of fit it over the facts that are well established within science. Right. And this video is just like, he's just taking tiny pieces of information and drawing a vague, crude line to sort of get us to a certain type of conclusion. He's like corralling our thoughts. And when you really look at what he's done, he's painted a very, very vague, very sort of nondescript version of his God.
There's only one nuance that's left hanging. We can talk about it another time, perhaps. Is that which created the universe, those forces active in the universe. But up to that point, science says you are correct. The definition of the biblical God is predates time, outside of time. God is not a physical being, is a force, and it creates the universe.
So basically, what he's saying in this video is that the forces, the laws of nature, that's God.
A hurricane comes through and kills a bunch of children. I mean, is it then viable to get angry with God? Or I mean, once you anthropomorphize reality, then you open up a box of just blame and recrimination for natural causes. I mean, getting struck by lightning is, there is no rhyme or reason, and it creates a toxic environment in society. When Hurricane Katrina came and killed all those people in New Orleans, there were tons of televangelists sort of saying that their wicked, their homosexual lifestyle was wrong, and God punished them.
And the funny thing is, the homosexual district was the only one unaffected by it.
Pat Robertson isn't listening. That should be the clue. God's trying to tell them something.
Well, it's funny because when you talk to Christians, and when you ask them to define God, you find very often that it's never the same definition. It's always a little bit different. Again, because the Bible is vague, so everybody understands it a little bit different. And I also think that, okay, well, it's not just Christianity, it's also Islam, but it makes people really selfish. Okay, instead of helping people, I'll just pray for them. That will make me feel good, even though I'm not doing shit, actually. This is the bullshit I hear sometimes. So let's say you got a plane crash. And let's actually say, for the sake of argument, that, just like in the world, 85% are religious, some kind of religion. And Christianity, of course, is a big portion of that. Well, okay, let's say the plane crashes and you got like maybe two survivors or something. Does that mean that these two are somehow favored by God and like all the others, even though they might even be more devout believers? Well, it was their time or something. How do they fit that? I don't understand.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's like the people who their relative will die in a house fire, but the Bible comes through unscathed, so that's a miracle somehow. It's like, when your relative has died. And it's also like what we were saying before about the expanse of the universe and the idea that this magic deity that is so large and omnipotent would care about such trivialities like to sink a plane. It's hard to conceive of, and like you said, there is no consensus between any religion. If you take religion as a broad philosophy, the only thing they can agree on would be that God exists. But then the next question, well, how many gods are there, or the male or female? The consensus dissolves. Science, on the other hand, has incredible levels of consensus and is very, very consistent and very regular. This level of inconsistency, you know that there's some bullshit going on there.
That's it for the show. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the end of May.
See you.